This is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real events or persons is purely coincidental. This story is purely fictional and does not promote or encourage any form of violence. All's well that ends. The patient was suddenly aware of the inside of his eyeballs. He looked left and then right, the light only offering a ghostly red glow that he had almost forgotten. He struggled to open his eyes, strips of vertical sunlight breaching the blinds and glancing off the walls of the dingy ward. He blinked hard, with lids so tight they felt like they were glued together, and he could not reach for his eyes, discovering that his arms were entrapped within a maze of tubes and wires. Fear enveloped him. He had no memory. He could not even remember falling asleep. A rush of adrenaline coursed like fire through his veins and muscles until he could hear his own heartbeat hammering in his head. He tried to scream, but instead just gurgled into the tube constricted within his throat. The movement, however, triggered the alarm that suddenly responded with a deafening chime. He squinted hard and could just make out the accompanying flashing red light above his head. A person entered the room and hurriedly started to tap into a computer keyboard. The alarm stopped, and the gentle hum from the machine next to the bed also fell silent. She then shouted, "Doctor, quickly! Patient 4908's regained consciousness." Patient 4918 then heard further footsteps enter the room and more tapping of keys. "I don't believe this," the man appeared to mutter. "Nurse, call Mr. Klutz. He needs to see this. I will get the tape off his eyes and make him more comfortable. Poor chap must think he's been buried alive." Staff nurse Natalie Jones sped off down the corridor, her vibrant red hair falling from the hairband and splashing across her face. Dr. Nimani slipped the tape off Tom's eyes, and then he felt the slight tugs of pain as tubes were removed and intravenous feeding lines removed. The consultant calmly strode into the room, a coffee in one hand and an almond slice in the other. His t-shirt and jeans looked unwashed, and his face showed at least 3 days of gray growth. "So, doctor, what have we got?" he inquired, offering a piece of cake to the nurse. She declined the offer, trying to hide her look of distaste of the unwashed consultant. "The patient is Tom Cullen, aged 39. He was involved in a road traffic accident nearly 16 years ago. They admitted him with multiple fractures and severe blood loss due to a severed femoral artery. The patient has received over 600 stitches to the face and neck and has undergone several operations to his legs. And in all that time, he has never regained consciousness. All's well that ends." The consultant put the coffee cup on the bedside table and ran his skeletal fingers through his thinning hair. "Well, Mr. Cullen, first off, do not try and speak. We will have to lubricate your vocal cords. So for now, just nod and shake your head. Do you understand?" Tom nodded. "As you can see, you're in hospital and have had the benefit of hospital cuisine for last 16 years, which explains why you are so thin," he said, smiling at Nurse Jones and Dr. Nimani. Both laughed more out of courtesy and duty, as the consultant had just made a joke. "Can you remember anything of the accident?" Tom shook his head. "Do you have any pain? And can you feel your fingers and toes?" Tom nodded again, growing impatient with the lack of information being offered. "Excellent. Checking your records, you have no further operation pending for obvious reasons, I guess. And now it's just some physiotherapy and speech therapy to get you back on your feet. Nurse Jones will organize an exercise regime for you, and Dr. Nimani will keep a check on your chart. Is everything clear?" Tom shook his head and took the pen and pad off the nearby table. He slowly scrolled. "I have no memory what happened to me. Which hospital is this?" Nurse Jones replied. "This is the city hospital, and the only records we have indicate that you were caught up in a road traffic accident On the night of 12th October, two other people were involved and both died from their injuries, but were not related to you, and that is all I know. You were visited for a while by a woman, which we can only deduce was your mother or much older sister. Those visits ended in 2029. I think we should leave you for a while to collect your thoughts and adjust to your situation. Then tomorrow we continue with your treatment regime. The hospital staff then quickly vacated the room, leaving Tom to finish his energy drink and take in the view from his window. The blinds to his room had been pulled wide, and he looked out across city skyline, shrouded in a dark stain-stained crosses. Then a group of wealthy aristocrats, industrialists, and financiers got together, calling themselves the Rockefeller Consortium. They opposed the aliens' policy, again particularly in America, where they coerced the government into asking for a dispensation for certain individuals who were willing to all's well that ends pay. The aliens flatly refused. In fact, they went on to say that money is still the root of all evil, and explained that that is why we have found ourselves in this predicament. The consortium then urged true Americans to mount an offensive on one of the ships that had landed and take possession. However, as we know, God is quite belligerent when his subjects do not obey his will. She paused. 7 months, a private army launched an airstrike against Ark 2 in an attempt to gain control of the ship. They surreptitiously flew 30 aircraft into the holding bay of the ship for what they said were carrying supplies for the humans assisting with the modifications needed for the transfer. Each plane, however, was loaded with heavily armed stormtroopers who intended to take command of the Ark for the waiting army, then to move in and seize command of the vessel. Not one soldier made it out alive. They were sliced apart by drone units, angels that guard their ships. The remaining army fled without firing a single shot, but were then engulfed in a wave of fire that spewed out from under the ship. The response to this act of aggression was instant and without mercy. They hunted down the organizers of the revolt. It didn't take them long, and on what is now known as the Day of Absolution, they were detained, all 400. Natalie was shocked to see that Tom was smiling. Best thing that could have happened. Never did like people who use their money and power to manipulate people just to get what they want, he said. Natalie paused. Well, being a nurse and the right age, I have a place and I leave in just over a month to start preparations when the survivors are aboard the ships and we are safely in orbit. The aliens are going to eradicate human life on the planet so they do not suffer as the magnetic shield deteriorates further. They have ensured us that it will be painless. Much like carbon monoxide poisoning, everybody will be sedated so that they fall asleep. Then a neurotoxin will be administered into the atmosphere 48 hours later, and that will be that. And in about 5,000 years, the Earth will be habitable once more. She stopped without taking a breath, and then swallowed hard. Tom, you have just less than 2 months to live. Now she breathed again. Tom got to his feet, then paced around the room, ignoring the pain in his limbs. He slammed his fist against the wall, lifted the end of the bed, and threw his cup through the open window. "This is unreal," he exclaimed. "All's well that ends." Why do they get to choose who stays or goes? How do they know who is a good person and who is bad? The person could be a mad scientist, doing all kinds of weird mess to animals, a serial-killing doctor, or just a useless farmer. How will they know? We had to do all kinds of tests, physical, mental, and psychological. Evidently, there is an inmate in some prison somewhere who is serving 15 years for multiple murder, but is a brilliant mathematician. He has been selected. This news just served to put more fuel onto the fire. He suddenly turned to look at Natalie, his face now contorted, twisted with venom in his eyes. What about Mark? What does he have to offer? A banker, I bet. Yes, also an entrepreneur. But last week he asked me to marry him and I said yes, so he is allowed to journey with me. Tom could not believe his ears. How could she be so gullible? In rage, he slammed his fist against the wall again. Can't you see he is just using you for a free ticket off this planet? Once you're on the new Earth, you won't see him for dust. How dare you, Tom? You don't know anything about Mark. We have been together for almost 2 years. The aliens have been here 3. Their agenda has been on the table for all that time. Mark knows he is not going anywhere. Hey presto, let's get married. Natalie strode across the room, slapped Tom's face, and was intending to walk as quickly as she could from the ward, but Tom held her arm firmly and pulled her close. It is me that you will marry, Natalie. You will arrange it, or your beloved Mark will not even make the shuttle. I won't let that happen so easily. Do you really think I am going to finish up as crisp bread while you two float off to Shangri-La? I already know that he lives at the Cameron Villa, only a 10-minute walk from here. Apartment number 4, I believe. And look what's in my pocket. A front door key, he said, shaking the key fob in her face. You fool, he thought he had lost that on Monday. Tears began to stream down her face. Oh, and one thing more, Tom said as he spun her around by her wrist. Don't ever hit me again, he sneered, pushing her away as she stumbled into the corridor. Spinning down the corridor. Bring me the documents to sign as soon as you can, darling, he shouted, as Natalie quickly made her way to the stairs, sobbing, clutching for her mobile phone. All's well that ends. Mark, it's me. Listen, it was Tom who stole your front door key. He's gone crazy and says he will hurt you if I don't reassign him as my partner for the Ark. I'm really scared. He's lost the plot, and I think the monster has broken my nose, she sobbed. Jesus, just get yourself downstairs. I am coming over. Meet you in the lobby, Mark replied. The door to the service lift slid open. She clambered inside and punched in her access code. She had not heard Tom making his way down the corridor, and he attempted to get his fingers between the doors as they closed. You fool, he screamed. Even on these legs I will beat you downstairs. Get the papers, or he dies. Understand? The lift started to descend. The girl announced each floor, 4, 3, 2, but was rudely interrupted as the lift shuddered, then suddenly came to a crunching stop. Natalie fell violently to the floor. The doors slid open as the girl's voice came over the speaker. The lift is currently experiencing a fault. Please use the stairs. Apologies for the inconvenience. Natalie scrambled out onto the corridor, then moved over to the stair lobby. She could hear Tom shouting obscenities, slowly clattering his way down the stair core. She ran to the first fire door locked. Panicking, she ran to the other. It also wouldn't move. A bed had been lodged against it. She pushed hard, screaming, "Open, you fool!" her knuckles bleeding white through her skin. One final push, the trolley sprang free, and the door swung open, causing her to fall forward into the room. The lights on this level were dead, so she ran straight into the safety of darkness and stopped to catch her breath. Natalie searched her bag and found her alarm. They would soon find her. Mark entered the hospital by the staff entrance and quickly made his way up the service stair as stealthily as he could, in his leather sole shoes. He reached the 4th floor. The door slowly opened. All was quiet. A soft light shone from Tom's room onto the gloomy corridor. Keeping low and close to the wall, he inched his way towards the light. Just as he reached the door, Kylie fell into the corridor, gripping her bloodied wrists. "Help me," she pleaded, as she collapsed in the hallway. Mark quickly found some bandages in the cupboard and began applying the dressings to the gaping cuts. But it was already too late. Mark held her and looked into her dying eyes. "I'm sorry. I don't know what to do." She didn't hear his words. She had already gone, and he lowered her now lifeless body onto the floor. He looked into the room. The walls were sprayed dark stains, and he could see that the implements drawer was open, and 3 scalpel contours lay empty. He moved back into the corridor, looked left and then right, then down to scalpel in his right hand, dripping red onto the floor. Natalie skulked in the shadows of the ward, trying to hide her breathing. Tom edged into the ward, moving slowly towards the sound of Natalie's breathing. "Why are you being like this? I am sure we will make a lovely couple. Stop being so negative. The people on the new planet will be in need of my particular skills. Well, they will eventually." Tom stumbled into a low coffee table, lost his balance and crashed down to his left, landing hard on his aching hip. "That was your fault, you fool." Natalie was not listening. Taking advantage of the fall, she was already out of the ward and further down the corridor towards stair core 4. The lights suddenly blinked into life. "Oh, mess," she exclaimed as she heard Tom laugh in the distance. "Coming ready or not?" he sniggered. He was moving quickly now, the crutch hardly slowing him at all. At the stairs, Natalie decided to move up to the 3rd floor instead of continuing down. Once there, she could backtrack down the corridor and make the service stair before Tom had time to realize. She crept upwards, constantly listening for his following footsteps. Suddenly, she heard the familiar rumble of the lift motors driving the lift down to the ground floor. "Damn it," she said. The power had been restored to the building. Natalie picked up her pace and entered the corridor to the 3rd floor. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. It was Mark. "Don't speak. Just listen. I did some research and found an old article on the Newsnet. It relates to a Tom Cullen. The story follows a motorist who knocked down a mother and baby late at night in Sheffield. He lost control of the vehicle and it veered off and hit a traffic light. The driver ended up in hospital with serious head injuries. Mother and baby were both killed. Tom was found huddled on the rear seat, babbling incoherently, supposedly high on drugs and alcohol. Keep well clear, Natalie. The guy should have been in a secure unit, but I suspect he just slipped through the net." Natalie wanted to speak, but knew that Tom was on the move again. All's well that ends. She pressed the disconnect button just as the angel turned the corner of the corridor. The elongated egg hovered silently above the floor, held in position by some form of advanced, unseen force. The surface was perfectly smooth, without indentation or pronounced details, just a large, unblinking green eye. "Stop and be recognized," asked the strange and soothing voice. The laser scanner shone from the drone's eye, the green beam moving slowly down her trembling body. "Subject 212487, I hope you are well and prepared for disembarkation. We sensed an increase in adrenaline and cortisol in your system, which is very unhealthy for our newborn." "I am fine." The lift crashed and I got a little stressed. "I am claustrophobic, that is all," she lied. "Very well. I will sweep the rest of the building. My sensors identify 2 other intruders who do not appear on the manifest for this building." The angel then fell silent and hovered away down the corridor. She quickly sent a text message to Mark. "Angels are in the building. You have not been chipped and will be deemed hostile. The angels are likely to attack on sight." She pressed send. Error, no signal, flashed on the screen. She pressed send again. The message repeated itself. "Damn it," she said under her breath. Suddenly the lift bell pinged behind her. She froze for a second as her heart welled up in her throat. Her hand groped for the nearest available door handle. It turned, and the door opened. She slipped inside and gently eased the door shut. Natalie held her hand over her mouth to hide the fact she was now gulping air. Tom slowly emerged from the lift, cranking his head left and right to view down the awaiting corridor. "Natalie," he called in a sweet, high-pitched voice. "Coming, ready or not?" She heard the familiar sound of his crutch running down the length of the radiator. He stopped at the first door, tried the handle. It opened. He stepped inside. She quickly made her way to the PV sensor on the far wall and knocked it clear across the room with her shoe. The lights immediately dimmed. She fell to her hands and knees and quickly located a safe hiding place behind a privacy screen. Tom was back in the corridor, perspiration streaming down his face, his hair wet with "all's well that ends" sweat. His hand could barely grip his walking aid. He wiped his soaking hand down his dressing gown. This side of the hospital had been the maternity wing, and vacant cribs littered the corridor, slowing his progress further. "Nurse Jones, we need to talk and sort things out. I'm sure we can make a go of it. You know I am a very giving lover, and I want to give you love, lots and lots of times," he said with a smirk that evolved to a grin before growing into a guttural laugh. He had to try 2 more doors before he got to the examination room where Natalie had found refuge. She knew she had to move, but where? This room did have a small antechamber, but that only had 1 door in and 1 door out. If she moved into the corridor, he would see her. Natalie was just about to make her move when suddenly the door crashed open and light invaded the room. Tom stood in the doorway, a spidery silhouette, the bright corridor light masking any discernible features. "Peekaboo," he said in between gulps of air. Natalie froze and held her breath as Tom stumbled into the room, using the furniture as a support. But when he was clear of the door, it swung violently back, slamming shut, plunging the room into darkness. Suddenly they heard Mark's voice. "Natalie, where are you?" he shouted. Natalie desperately wanted to warn him that the angels would quickly discover his location, but couldn't relinquish her position of safety. "Mess," Tom said, reopening the door and stepping back into the corridor. Whilst in the same moment, Mark entered the corridor from the distant fire stair. Both men stood silent, face to face, assessing what their next move would be. As soon as the door had shut, Natalie sped across the room, then quickly tapped a warning message into her phone, and again pressed send. Mark's phone chimed in his pocket. "Seems like Princess Natalie wants to say hello," sneered Tom. Mark read the message. "Angels in Belle DG, be careful. I saw what you did to Kylie and Dr. Nimatmini. Not a pretty sight," Mark said. "Don't know what you mean unless you are referring to the custard cream I pinched off the trolley when she was distracted. They're both dead, Tom, and we both know who did it. I saw the missing scalpels, and I saw what you did to that poor woman. All's well that ends." "Not sure where you are going with this, but I have not seen Dr. Nimani for a couple of days, and Kylie was fine the last time I saw her, and you appear to be the one holding a scalpel, Mark," replied Tom, noticing the gleaming blade in his adversary's hand. "Well, it won't be long for you now, Tom. The angels are on their way. Your prints are all over the murder scene, and they don't take any prisoners. Their justice is a final." Tom was now concerned. He turned to look down corridor. Empty. Natalie suddenly sprang from the room, hitting Tom in the ribs, sending him crashing into the opposite wall. She turned to Mark. "You must get out of the building. If the drones find you, they will treat you as hostile. You haven't been chipped yet." Natalie, tears in her eyes, knew he had to move, and quickly. "Mark, you have to run. Get out now," she screamed as the drone appeared from behind her. The angel glided up from the staircase and instantly scanned the corridor. the sleek body shimmering with energy as it floated past Tom and Natalie. Everyone froze. Then Tom slowly got to his feet. Mark was about to run when he sensed movement in the stairwell from where he had just emerged. He had been followed and turned to find himself face to face with the angel. "Do not move. You are being scanned," it commanded. Mark looked back at Tom and Natalie as the other machine shone the green beam of light up and down their bodies. Suddenly the lights turned red, and a series of blades slid out from the angels to form what looked like wings. "Miss Jones, will you please stand aside?" "No, check your database again. That is Mark Peterson. He is nominated as my mate for New Earth," she pleaded. The angel turned. "I have analyzed the evacuation database, and I assure you that I have no record of a Mark Peterson, and this other male does not exist, and we sense violent intent. That, as you know, Miss Jones, is prohibited." "These two are just like toy Daleks," Tom laughed, as the drone suddenly charged its primary weapon and fired directly at Mark. He was struck full in the chest and stood rigid, every cell vibrating, his whole body glowing red, his face contorted in pain and terror as every electrical impulse in his system was overloaded. "Help me," he said weakly, before everything went still, his bones. "All's well that ends." "Natalie too," screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks, pleading with the angels to stop the attack. Within seconds, what remained of his body fell to the floor in a lifeless silhouette. Remained, not recognizable as human or even animal. Natalie fell to her knees, her new life, her new love, her whole world ended by the brutality of these oppressors. She hit the angel with her fist, but the device continued to float, unmoved by her actions. She then ran into the office, picked up a chair and hurled it, but the chair failed to reach the target, stopping within inches of the drone and falling harmlessly to the corridor floor. "Please desist, Nurse Jones, and return to your duties." By now, Tom had backed away from the group and was near the atrium when the angel turned to face him. "Resistance is futile. Prepare to die. If I have to die, then I die on my terms," he announced as he climbed the glazed handrail, closed his eyes, and dived majestically into the void. Tom was abruptly awoken by the subtle aroma of stale sweat, urine, and human feces. "I am in trouble," he thought, slowly opening his eyes. He found himself in a cage, the top of which was only centimeters above his head. He was not alone, however, as the cage was crammed full of men and women all grasping through the mesh as if searching for their redeemer. "Where am I?" he asked the bedraggled, whiskered stranger to his left. "A couple of recon angels dropped you in a couple of hours ago. This is holding pen 242, final selection process for early termination, or a place on Arc 3. Don't hold your breath, though. In the last 8 months, no one has yet been selected," he replied, showing more gaps than teeth. The man stared for a moment, as memories spun in his mind. "I think I recognize you," the old man added, rubbing the dancing fleas from his forehead. Tom stared. "I don't think you do. I have been in a coma for the last 16 years, dead to the world. The name's Tom Cullen." "Can't be Tom Cullen. He disappeared, fled from a car crash, badly smashed up, I reckon. He had taken some guy hostage, some crazy mixed-up kid who was some kind of computer whiz whose dad was loaded, and Tom wanted his cash. Well, he got the money and was taking the hostage to some remote location so that he could be released when he lost control of the car. He was a real jerk, but also a right cold man by all accounts. Had it coming to him, if you ask me. The hostage, all's well that ends, survived, though. Peterson, I think he was called. Yeah, Mark Peterson, he replied with a wink of his eye. Mark jumped, gripped the mesh and pulled his face until it was forced through the mesh, imprinting squares into his face. "I need to speak to someone in charge, right now," he shouted. End.